So the Pentagon is now skeptical about Iraqi claims that the leader of ISIS was wounded. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi reportedly wounded in coalition airstrike over the course of this weekend, but now there's some question about that. Meanwhile, President Obama is doubling down, saying his order to send 1,500 more U.S. troops into Iraq is a, quote, new phase in the fight against the Islamic State.
Rather than just try to halt ISIL's momentum, we're now in a position to start going on some offense. The airstrikes have been very effective in degrading ISIL's capabilities and slowing the advance that they were making. Now what we need is ground troops, Iraqi ground troops, that can start pushing them back.
Easily said. Easily done is another question. KT McFarland is our Fox News national security analyst. I mean, everybody would love the president to be right about this, that things are going well. What do you make of this doubling of our troop presence on the ground, not combat troops, which he made very clear, to about 3,000 special advisors now?
Let me just quote the former commandant of the Marine Corps, General Conway, who said, "Not a snowball's chance in hell this is going to work." I think it's a sign of a president who hasn't learned the lessons of Vietnam, of Iraq, Afghanistan, even Libya. He's going to send in just enough forces so that we don't win and we don't fail. But he's done it for political cover. Why? Because he doesn't know what else to do. So he's going to send some forces in and then be able to say, see, I'm doing something, it's succeeding, it's great. But when it fails, he hasn't made a big commitment. So he thinks he can kind of weasel out of any political accountability. Now, if you look at the situation, we either should go in and do it, or if we can't do it, then get out. Because to put incremental forces in, it's a prescription for disaster. If we couldn't stabilize Iraq with over 100,000 troops, we're not going to do it this way. If we couldn't train and equip the Iraqi army with over $30 billion of expenditure, we're not going to do it now.
I mean, once again, the president is going on his own guidance rather than listening to the commanders on the ground. In Iraq, they wanted to have more troops on the ground in order to stabilize Iraq. Afghanistan, same story. Libya, which we were involved in a partnership in, same story as you've pointed out. So, I mean, it raises the question, if you're not committed to winning, should we not have anyone on the ground there? Because those people are very much at risk if there isn't enough to back them up. Are they not?
They're certainly at risk if there's not enough to back them up. Our own forces are at risk. But I think we need to take a step back from the situation. Why do we care about what's going on in the middle? What does it matter to America? Well, historically it's been oil, it's been terrorists, and it's been Israel. We wanted their oil, we didn't want their terrorists, and we wanted to support Israel. Fast forward to today, what is the situation? We don't need their oil anymore. We, the United States, have found and have the ability to be not only energy self-sufficient for ourselves, but be an energy source for the world. So who cares about the Middle East oil in that regard? Number two, terrorists. We now have the ability with data mining and big data to track people that we think are suspected to have terrorist leanings and inclinations. We have to take the political correctness handcuffs off, but we could find those people. And as for Israel, they don't want our military forces. They want the help, the assistance, the military aid they need to do the job themselves to protect their own integrity and their own survival. And they don't want a president who is bad-mouthing them, or his staff is bad-mouthing them with sort of disparaging comments and saying they're finished, etc. So
it sounds like you're making an argument for not being there.
I'm making an argument to say, if we're not going to be committed to doing this the right way, don't get involved in this sort of incremental way, because it won't succeed. What would succeed? Okay, the United States pushing for energy independence on our own, accelerating our own energy programs, going to our partners in the region, Israel, the Egyptians even, any of the moderate Arabs, and saying, how can we help you do the job? But I think what the president was going to end up doing is he's going to cut a deal with Iran within the next 2 months. And here's what the deal's going to look like. He's going to lift the sanctions. They're going to pretend to stop their nuclear program. We're going to pretend to believe them. We're going to continue to give air support, as the president's talked about. But the Iranian military, the Iranian leadership, the Iranian top general, who's already in Iraq, they're going to be the ground forces. So we're going to end up being the Air Force for the Iranians, which, wait a minute, weren't they just a direct and existential threat to the United States as a nuclear power?
I cannot even imagine the
I
response
think we'll be there. You and I are going to have that conversation in 2 months.
I hope we don't, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Al-Baghdadi, we talked at the beginning of this segment about the fact that there was word last night that he was wounded. What do we know about that?
We don't know a lot. It's the Iraqi military that's claimed that they've either wounded him or killed him. They attacked a meeting of headquarters in Mosul, which is a city, major city controlled by ISIS. We don't have any independent confirmation. We may not have any independent confirmation. What we know about Baghdadi is the following. He is really clever. He is strategically important. He has crafted ISIS out of the embers of the old al-Qaeda in Iraq. He's formed a military. He's got a political and leadership group. He's gone into regions. He's a formidable enemy. He personally is charismatic. If we, the West, our allies, whoever we're working with, can get rid of him, that would be a terrific thing. He's as charismatic as bin Laden is. However, my worry is if we've wounded him, he will be like a cornered rat, and he will then go lash out at America, at Americans, and anybody else in the region. Hard to think he gets it even worse, because beheadings and crucifixions are pretty bad. But I think the cornered Baghdadi and an injured one becomes even more lethal and violent.
Brutal, vicious force in the region, and we need to know that we're doing enough to stop it. KT, thank you very much. Good to see you as always.